Hey, back for another week of Georgia football. This one bigger than the one before, and that one was bigger than the one before, and they all seem to be that way here at the end of the season. Georgia and Ole Miss coming up this weekend in Athens. Night game 7:08 or is the official time. Might be a 5-minute TV slide. You know how those TV folks are. Shock. Um, yeah, it might be as late as a 7:13 kick. So you're gonna have plenty of time to get into the stadium and get your seat and get loud immediately for Georgia and Ole Miss. This is a big one. Welcome into Russ Tanner and D.J. Shockley once again. We're going to chit chat a little bit about this week's game and about how the Dogs are doing. And guys, it's senior day, last home game of the year. I want to go back and ask you guys if you remember your senior day, if you have any vivid memories about that final time in Sanford Stadium, and most importantly, did you cry?
Crying,
Uh,
no, I don't remember crying. As offensive lineman, it's all this emotional stuff, but you got a lot of big, nasty defensive linemen getting ready to come at you over there. So, no time for tears. I don't remember a lot about it. I remember it being cool just to be on the field with your parents, loved ones that was supporting you, Coach Rick giving you a hug, telling he's proud of you. Kind of a little bit of a culmination of something that so many of us dreamt of from the time we were barely out of the crib and able to walk was playing at a place like Sanford Stadium. So, to be out there with your brothers who you've been through so much for 3, 4, 5 years before that meant a lot. But yeah, I don't remember a lot about the specific day.
yeah, I'm with Russ. I think the thing that I remember the most was I remember for years before it was actually my time, like, man, here's senior day. Those Jews out there, they about to leave. They got their whole parents out there. I got plenty of time for that. And before I knew it, it was me. I was the guy that was, going to be out there with your parents. And it just, it was weird. It kind of happened so fast, felt like. But I think similar to this week, you go into this game, and for us, I think that we needed to beat Kentucky to like get into the SEC championship or something like that, or seal it or something. So it was like, all right, yeah, this is definitely something you remember. But then at the end of the day, it's like, whoa, you got to strap in because this game matters a lot, similar to what's going to happen on Saturday. So it's definitely a culmination of everything you thought about over the years, and to finally be recognized that way. And like Russ said, I remember Coach Rick coming up to entire family, hugging you, and all this kind of stuff. But then you have to quickly change your brain into, all right, we got a game to play. Like Russ said, this dude's over there that's for the take your head off. They don't care nothing about your senior day, so you better lock in.
That's it.
And shocked to follow up what you just touched on there. If Georgia wins on Saturday, they clinch the East and they secure a spot in the SEC championship. Is that going through the minds of these guys this week as they prepare
Oh,
for Ole Miss?
you absolutely think about it. I think it's something that these guys have definitely thought about because I heard Coach Smart talk about it last week. Like, hey, there's not a time after the big win last week. He's like, we still got more to do. We still got a chance to next week to lock this thing down. So there's definitely something in the minds of these guys wanting to finish this thing the right way and not have to wait another week to go to Neyland or whatever it may be. I think this is a huge, huge thing that you have to think about. It's if you say, "Yeah, I'm not thinking about what's going to happen," I think you're lying because this is a huge opportunity for you, and you know about those big situations now. Whether you publicize it to the media or talk about it outside of your building, that's a whole nother story. But internally, yeah, you're like, let's go ahead and handle business and do what we're supposed to do and head the way we want to go to, which is Atlanta.
Yeah,
Chuck or
yeah.
Russ, your thoughts on that same question. I mean, what DJ just kind of took care of most of it, but a lot of times when you ask something like that to players and coaches, it's a one focus thing. We're just focused on this moment for this game. We're not looking at the big picture, what happens afterward. But when there's a spot to get into a championship game, that's certainly got to be on their minds.
I think back to how we used to set goals for the season, and you want to get the season healthy. You want to win that opening game. You want to beat every opponent at a one game at a time situation. But then you look ahead to big picture goals, and for us, the big picture goals always started with winning the SEC East, make it to the SEC championship game. Because if you can get there, you got a shot to continue on for really meaningful games after that. So this is the first real game of the season to where your big picture goals are now tangible. You can now attack a game in a way to where if you win, you've checked off one of the major checks that are sitting back here behind you, kind of looming over what you want to accomplish as a team for the season. Other games like, yep, we got to keep winning. It's one game at a time, one game at a time. Got to beat Florida, got to beat Vandy, got to beat Kentucky, got to beat Auburn, whatever it may be. Now it's like, hey, yeah, we got to beat Ole Miss. And also, if we do that, we check that big box. We're the SEC champs. We know we got our spot in Atlanta. That doesn't diminish what happens in Knoxville when we play Tennessee in a week or so, but it's huge. I don't think it's necessarily an added pressure for these guys. I don't think they're going to go in feeling tight, feeling that, the weight of the dog nation's upon them. I mean, that's been there for the last 40-some-odd games since we've been winning. But I do think they're aware of it, and they know how big it is for a program. You'll see a little bit more emotion when the Dogs win on Saturday night because, getting to Atlanta is very hard. And if you win against a team like Ole Miss, who is very good, Lane Kiffin's got a lot of juice, pun intended, coming with him, with his dog. It means something. It just means more, right? That's the SEC thing, and this is a great example of that.
What did you like last week that you saw in that win over Missouri? What did you like from the Bulldogs?
Man, it was just a gritty win. And Kirby, I think in his post-game press conference, he addressed kind of the media, was talking to some of you guys about it and just saying, people expect us to win every game easily. It's not easy to win the SEC. When you look at it, we didn't necessarily run the ball great. I think we rushed for about $150. Carson Beck looked good. He wasn't phenomenal. The defense made plays, but Missouri moved the ball on them. And a lot of times when you play teams that are good, that are coached well, that are talented, that are tough, you just got to figure out how to grit it through and win. And to me, games like that for this Georgia team, where they've got to be fully engaged for 48 minutes of a football game, because that game wasn't in the bag until there was just 2 or 3 minutes left in the game. I mean, it was the first time all year where they truly had to play an entire 4 quarters football game before you could feel good about it. So that's what I was proud of. I mean, it was just everybody did their job. Nobody was the superstar. There wasn't 4 sacks. There wasn't all this, that, and the other. The team finally just came together and had a tough, gritty SEC win. And I was real proud of the boys for it.
Yeah, when I look back on that ball game, one thing sticks out to me was there was an obvious defensive mindset and scheme change of what you want to do. I should say more than a personnel change, anything. You took Ty Key out, you put Kamari in the slot to kind of take away Luther Burden, who was their big-time receiver, and then you allowed Julian Humphrey and, Dalen Everett to be on the corners, and I thought it worked pretty good. Give Kamari a lot of credit, man. He was in the hip pocket of him most of the time, and Luther had that one play where, they got a switch on Everett on the outside on that go route. But other than that, I mean, he was a non-factor in the ball game, coming in being one of the top receivers in the game. So I love the change in, guys changing roles within a game and knowing that, hey, I'll do whatever it takes to help this team win. I thought was big. And the last part that I like about the game was some of the hidden yardage that you figured about. How about that third phase? How about Peyton Woodrick? How about knocking through some monster kicks in that game, man? Being a true freshman, he had some big-time kicks that gave Georgia a lot of big extra rhythm going forward. And then my man Muse, think about kickoff return, punt return. He had a bunch of hidden yards in that ball game where he, picked up 8 to 10 yards on a punt return, or, returning it out to the 30, 35-yard line on a kickoff return. Just those are things that are winning situations, I think. And when you get it done, like Russ mentioned, on offense, defense, and then add special teams, that's a hard team to beat.
I think that's a great point about the hidden yard Shock made. When I was looking this week at just some of the stat breakdowns from the game, it was nuts how even so much of the game was, from passing yards, rush yards, total yards, first downs, third down conversions, turnovers. I mean, go back and look at it. It's crazy. It was almost dead equal down. You do the tail of the tape, it was one of the most evenly matched games you've ever seen. Yet Georgia wins by 9 or 10 points, whatever it shook out to be. And it's because of those little things like Shock said. It's about the hidden yard, just one play here or there. And that's what makes the difference in these huge SEC games.
Why is Ole Miss a contender this year? Is it the quarterback? Is it the overall talent? Is it the coaching? Is it the scheme? Is it the pace that they play? Combination of all of that. What are your thoughts on that? Why are they good this year?
Yeah, Scott. Well, what you just said, throw that all in a buggy and put it together.
Yeah,
That's it. That's exactly. I mean, like Russ, big barbecue guy, put all that in a big stew and stir it up because that's exactly what Ole Miss is all about. They do a lot of things. They do a lot of things that have made them successful. And I think you mentioned you touched on the tempo on offense. They got dudes on the outside. They got 3 receivers with over 600 yards. Junkins is a guy who's got like 12 touchdowns. Dart he's got 300 yard rushing and 7 touchdowns to go along with 16 passing. I mean, this is an offense that puts a lot of pressure on you with their tempo, and they have real deal playmakers on the outside. And then you couple that with their defense has continually got better. Yeah, they've had moments where they've given up 38, 40 points, but there's also the defense that can get after. They got 31 sacks on the season, 66 tackles for loss, 10 interceptions. All those are top 3, 4 in the SEC. And that tells you about the havoc that they can create on defense if they get going. And then you put that together and say, all right, well, if the offense is playing the way it is and they are getting turnovers and all of a sudden you're down 14-0 and now the other team's playing catch up and it makes it to a high scoring affair. I don't think that's something that we want to get into. But this is an Ole Miss team that has put a lot of pressure on you offensively, and they've gotten better defensively, and they create some problems for you. So it's going to be an interesting matchup because I think of all the skill players that they have, and then on the defensive line, as Russ knows, when you got a D line that can rush the passer, can get after you, it makes it for a long day in the run order pass game.
Yep, that's exactly right. And I mean, all the stuff you mentioned is right. Shock's dead on. Lane Kiffin has recruited well. They've got talent at Ole Miss now. I mean, they can play with anybody, just line it up physically with them. And then, Lane Kiffin is just one of those guys who's an offensive innovator. I mean, they figure out ways to pressure you on defense. And, you think about stuff Shock talked about, the amount of kind of big plays they've had on defense, the sacks, the turnovers, et cetera. It seems to me that Ole Miss is willing to give up points and take chances because Lane Kiffin knows he's going to score points. And he'll let his guys take a shot here or there. Maybe they jump right outside and try to get a pick. Maybe they're not as sound in their pass rush to try to get a sack. They'll give up plays here or there. They don't mind giving up points because they figure if they can take the ball away from you more than you can take away from them, they're going to outscore you. And at the end of the day, football ain't that complicated, right? You try to beat them by scoring more points than they do. And Lane Kiffin, not Lane Kiffin, that's a different guy. Lane Kiffin has figured out how to do that really well from an offensive standpoint. And people for a long time thought it was some kind of spread attack they ran. They're a downhill running team. They're going to challenge you physically with what they do on offense. Judkins coming in was one of those guys preseason who was on that kind of, Heisman watch list. He had a huge season last year. Started off a little bit slow this year, but now he's rolling. Jackson Dart, dual threat guy like Shock mentioned. They've got a lot of different ways they can attack you. And Lane Kiffin is as good as anybody in the country as far as knowing how to use the people on his roster to attack what you're doing. He's a really, really, really smart dude. So it's going to be an interesting chess match between Lane Kiffin, one of the best offensive minds in the country, against Kirby, Schumann, Muschamp, probably the best defensive group of guys in the country. So I'm excited.
Now, let me add one last thing to kind of piggyback what Russ just mentioned about this offense for Ole Miss. And he's absolutely right. This is an offense that people think is all tempo, throw it all over the yard, 30, 40 times a game. But they actually are 4th in the SEC in rushing. And to Russ's point, they average over 38 attempts a game running the football. So that tells you, yeah, they're going to throw it, but guess what? They will line up and they will run the football, and they're successful at it. So, just thinking they're going to throw it all over the yard is ridiculous. They're going to run it just as much as they throw it, and it makes them even more tough to defend because they can be balanced.
How much of a taste did Georgia get with Schrader and Cook, since you guys were talking about running the football? I mean, Schrader was an absolute handful last week, and Cook in the first half was able to just run it up the gut for, 20, 30 yards at a time, it seemed like. So how much will that help Georgia be prepared for what Ole Miss will offer in the running game this week?
I think you turn on the tape and you say, man, that dude hurt us. And that dude made a lot of plays with his legs. And let's see why he was successful doing that. So you can go back and look at some of the fundamental stuff. Oh, how did we rush the quarterback? Were we disciplining our rush lanes? How many times did we lose contain trying to beat our guy to the inside and Cook gets outside? So I think you go back and you can learn from that just a week ago where it's fresh in your brain knowing, okay, we got a similar guy coming in here who can do that. this is what we have to do to be better when it's talking about rushing the passer. So going against a guy like him, going against a physical down here runner like Schrader absolutely helps you going into this week, because it's going to be a similar ball game with those two style of players when you look at Ole Miss. So it's great that it just happened a week ago. It was fresh. They went through the tape this week and said, all right, I can see how he made those plays, but can we learn from it here in the back-to-back weeks to allow that not to happen?
Yeah, and we got to take the ball away from Ole Miss. I mean, that's something Georgia. You take the Florida game out this year, where we did cause havoc, did cause chaos. Other than that, this Georgia defense has not had a ton of sacks. It hasn't had a ton of turnovers. You better do that against Ole Miss, because they are going to score, like we said. It's crazy to me watching Ole Miss with how balanced they are. It's tough to defend because they are so balanced. You can't even depend on them in a third and long situation and think, oh, this is a pass. They'll run the ball on you on 3rd and 8. They go for it on 4th down a lot. I mean, Lane Kiffin knows his game plan. He sticks to his guns, and he does whatever he thinks will be successful against the defense you line up with. So, point is, he'll do anything at any time, and I think it makes it hard to defend. So they're balanced, they're talented, they're very good. And this Georgia defense, looked great against Florida. They were fine against Missouri last week. Missouri is a really good football team. So, I don't know. I think you've seen similar concepts as far as running quarterback, a good running back, et cetera. But Ole Miss just attacks you in a different way. Always has, always will with Lane Kiffin there. So, this is, I'm telling you, man, under the lights, 7 p.m., top 10 matchup. I mean, this is what you sign up for when you come to University of Georgia.
Russ, as a former offensive lineman, is that the area of the game you watch more than anything else when you're watching Georgia football? Do you keep an eye on that line of scrimmage, or do you look at everything and enjoy the whole game as a 100-yard piece?
He can't. He's ingrained to watch it like that. There's no way he can just watch a game like that. I know it.
We watch the ball. You end up watching the ball, but the good thing is the beauty of replay now. Every play gets shown twice. You can do both. So I like to watch the thing I usually watch, and this has been interesting to me over the last few years. I like to watch the line on the snap, because you can usually tell run, pass immediately and see what you're doing. But now the way the offenses are running is crazy. It shows how hard it is for defenses. If you watch the offensive line, that first step, you don't know if it's a run or a pass the majority of the time. All this RPO concept that they run now. So I watch the big boys more than the pretty quarterbacks and all those guys, because that's where you win and lose these games. But I like to see people like the skilled players like Nas, Stackhouse get the ball and get on the sideline a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I watch the big nasties.
Scott, you know what's interesting about what Russ just said? I was talking to, I can't remember who it was, one of the defensive linemen last week, and I was asking about some of the stuff that Missouri was trying to do, and he was like, "Man, it's so hard to tell, because on O&D line, you're always trying to get some kind of clue of whether it's going to be run or pass." And he's like, "Man, we couldn't tell because they were doing certain things with their hands or their feet, and it looked like it might have been a run, but it was pass." So it's interesting to hear Russ just say that, because they were just talking about that last week on trying to get tails in the game of what's happening. So Russ saying it's hard to tell on TV. Look, dudes right across from him have a hard time trying to tell too.
Mm-hmm. So when you're watching for your keys, they say, "Oh, he kept to his keys. He watched his key." Those can be deceiving sometimes.
Oh, 100%. Especially with the type of offense that you're going to see both teams do this week, by the way. You're not going to see 5 or 6 snaps taken under center in the entire game in all likelihood. These teams are shotgun teams. So when you got that, your offensive linemen are also now in 2-point stances. You're not heavy, flat back, hand in the dirt, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, smash them, split veer offense we saw, back in the day. This is now a multiple situation, from formations to personnel groupings, et cetera. The way the offenses win, the way they become so prolific, is by putting defense in bad position through alignment, assignment, and then different ways of attacking your weaknesses out there. And by design, all these plays look the same now, and it's a different era of football.
That's what I've been hearing this week about Lane Kiffin's coaching and his style, is that he looks for that advantage in matchups. So if he's got one advantage in a matchup on the field of the 22 guys on the field, then that's the direction that they might go. So what does that hold any water with you?
Oh, absolutely. I I think on both sides of the ball, all four coordinators right now have 2 or 3 or 4 matchups in the game that they like right now. And this is on a Wednesday, and they still got another day of preparation to go for Thursday. But there are 3 or 4 matchups in the game that you say, all right, on this down and distance, on this spot in the field, in this situation, this is the matchup we like the most. And you'll go to it. You see it on third down, or maybe you see it in the red zone or short yardage, whatever it may be. There are tails in the ball game. There are situations, there's matchups that each coordinator on both sides, offense and defense, are looking forward to, having. Even if it's, how many times have we seen Tyke come off the edge and get that sack? They have figured out a way, whatever situation it is, for that to be a winning play, because he always ends up seeing like he gets the sack on that particular play. So every week, both sides, both coordinators definitely have some matchups that they love to get to throughout a game.
Hey, guys, thanks for the time this week. Appreciate it. And Georgia and Ole Miss on Saturday. Under the lights last time around at Sanford Stadium. And, on a sad note, it's the last game in the press box as we know it. Here we'll be moving for next season up and over. So to new digs next year. We're looking forward to that. Dawgs and Rebels Saturday night, 7:08 in that vicinity for the kick. Should be a lot of fun. SEC Eastern Division Championship, possibly. If Georgia can win that game, they'll be headed to the conference championship game, despite what happens the rest of the season. So we look forward to Saturday's attempt to get there. Russ and Shock, thanks so much. We'll see you on Saturday night on the radio. We start at 3 o'clock for our pregame coverage on the Bulldog Sports Network. Until then, go Dogs!
Go Dogs!